Can L solve the Kira case?
JoJo's is notorious for its power scaling matchups and ranking of who's the strongest. However, when rewatching part 4, I thought of something that...
The best part in JoJo's, you can debate me all you want, part 4 is my favorite and the best part in all of JoJo's.
Is probably not spoken about enough considering how interesting it might be. And that is, realistically speaking, how hard would it be to catch Kira Yoshikage? Part 4
Why does he say it like that? It's nice. Kira Yoshikage. I like
introduces us to Kira Yoshikage, the man behind the stand Killer Queen. Outwardly, he craves nothing more than a quiet life, but beneath that facade lies a predator. His calm demeanor hides...
Don't say it like that. Especially don't say it in 2025 when... Wait, when was this video posted? Yeah, don't say this in 2025 when we have everything going on. Don't say he's a predator, please.
A dark compulsion, a fetishistic obsession with women's severed hands. This is made possible by Stand Killer Queen, which can erase a victim and every trace of the crime in an instant, including moving bodies with no trace of fingerprints and incriminating objects so completely that even the most skilled investigators would be left clueless.
Most?
The keyword there is most investigators. As the title suggests, today's video is about what happens when the world's greatest detective, L. Lowlight from Death Note, is given the task of catching Kira Yoshikage. This is way more complicated than one might think. But before we start, if you like this type of content and want to see more, subscribe. The goal is 15k. Thank you.
Nice.
To start, we need to split this into scenarios. The first scenario would be if L had help from the Mori...
Before we actually continue the video, I'd just like to say thank you guys so much for helping me reach 500 subscribers. It's actually so amazing that I didn't even think we could get to 100 subscribers, let alone 500. So yeah, again, thank you guys so much for subscribing, for liking the content, and just overall, just thank you.
Your team. And the second scenario would be if L had to solve this case alone. The results will be a lot different depending on which scenario he takes. Although, let's see how these events will unfold, starting from scenario 1. Jotaro's visit to Morio begins the same way. Joseph's Hermit Purple captures a photograph hinting at a dangerous presence in the town, and even something greater lurking in the shadows. Recognizing the seriousness of the threat, and with the wealth of the Joestar family behind him, Jotaro seeks out the one mind capable of untangling something this unusual. L. Lowlight, the world's greatest detective, who himself has the resources and reputation to operate on that level, as both are technically billionaires. The first case comes with Anjiro Katagiri, or better known as Angelo, and his stand Aqua Necklace. In the anime and manga, the fight escalates because Angelo strikes when the rain falls, but with L involved, the encounter will look a little different. By analyzing the conditions, a water-based stand which he heard from Josuke, Angelo's profile and the forecast of rain, L would conclude that Angelo intends to launch a mass attack during that time. But with L's prediction, it allows the group to counter Angelo before he attacks. And some might argue that with L by their side, Angelo could be caught even before this point. And that is reasonable, but for convenience of the scenario, it's better that the confrontation still happens here. Because this is the battle where L would witness a stand's mechanics in action. He could get information from Jotaro about how stands function and that, but a first-hand experience would allow for a better understanding most likely. Although he still can't see stands themselves. Moving on. While Josuke and the others continue facing new stand users, L's attention turns to something the locals overlook: Morio's disappearance rate. For a town its size, the number of missing persons is absurd. The police see unrelated cases with no evidence connecting them to any greater evil, but L interprets it differently. The evidence is too consistent. To him, the lack of evidence points to a mind operating behind it, or even multiple minds. The case shifts when Koichi and Rohan return from the hidden alley with information that changes everything. They explain that they encountered the ghost of Reimi Sugimoto, murdered 15 years ago, who revealed that Morio still hides a serial killer responsible for countless unseen deaths. She knows this because she has watched the souls of Kira's victims pass into the alley for over a decade. L can't see her himself, but he takes the testimony seriously. Reimi's murder, the only
I feel like the hardest thing about the Kira case for L is just like, it's just the fact that he can't see stands. Like yeah, technically you could, like, you can tell him about what stands are, but like he can't physically see them.
case with a body aligns with the spike in disappearance 15 years ago. From this point, L begins treating the vanishings as the work of one evolving killer who perfected a method of leaving no trace. With the case reframed, L develops a profile of the killer. Based on the ritualistic nature of the crimes and their longevity, he deduces they are looking for a man in his 30s to 40s, highly organized, socially unobtrusive, and obsessive in his routines. His need for control suggests he hides comfortably within ordinary life, perhaps as a quiet office worker who draws no suspicion. For the first time, the investigation has direction. Instead of waiting for the killer to make a mistake, they can actively search for people who fit this pattern. To narrow down on this profile, L conducts a systematic review of Morio's residence. Employment histories, public records, and lifestyle details are sorted through, narrowing thousands of names down to only a handful of suspects. This creates a manageable list for L to investigate. At this stage, L uses an ability that was used as a gimmick for Josuke and Okuyasu to get quick change: Shigechi's stand, Harvest. Rather than using it randomly, L directs Harvest to tell and observe the list of suspects. Then units are sent out to monitor behavior, routines, and reactions to controlled probes. But the moment comes when one of the Harvests is approaching Kira and is instantly destroyed after being witnessed, without visible cause or action as well. This isn't a
Shigechi survived because yeah.
coincidence like the time Shigechi picked up the wrong lunch bag. The destroyed Harvest confirms that Kira is a dangerous stand user who can erase victims with ease. The search has reached certainty. As a side note, in canon, Kira Yoshihiro, Yoshikage's father, repeatedly interferes and makes new enemies for the Morio team. However, L closes this gap quickly. Once Adam Half-Father is discovered, the photograph is treated as hazardous evidence and immediately contained. But that said, due to the killer's nature, L might not investigate Kira's home as he does not know what would happen if they enter.
In this game, destruction is your specialty. Your goal is to try to become the true god
I really don't
of
care.
destruction. But you'll have to...
But
Skip.
with Kira identified, the final challenge is understanding and countering Killer Queen, which they still have a vague understanding of. L insists on confronting him in a controlled environment where contingencies are in place. Jotaro insists on acting as a bait, and for once L agrees, because Star Platinum offers the greatest chance of surviving an initial attack. Josuke provides immediate healing, Okuyasu blocks escape routes, and Koichi is positioned to suppress secondary threats like Shihad attack, although they will not know about this at this stage. When Kira attempts to throw Jotaro off guard and detonate his bag when throwing it at him, Jotaro withstands the explosion long enough for Josuke to heal him instantly from the minor injuries. For Kira, the psychological impact is devastating. His supposedly perfect weapon has failed. That hesitation is enough for the team to close in. Okuyasu cuts off retreat, Jotaro counters at close range, and Kira is overwhelmed. As the final moments approach, L speaks from a set of speakers, telling Kira that they know he is the killer, and to surrender at once. Now, before moving on to scenario 2, you might be wondering why this outcome is different. In the manga, Kira's capture required a chain of coincidences: Shigechi's mistake, Yoshihiro's errors, and
Wait, I have a question though. Like, what about that one ability Kira has where he can like change whose body he possesses? Cause like in the anime they do catch Kira. Like make no mistake, they do catch Kira, but like in the anime anyway. I mean, in the anime and manga, it's like, yes, they catch him, but they also, yes, they catch him, but then he switches his consciousness to Kawasu, which is why it took them longer to catch
those
him.
interferences. With L present, the process of narrowing down the suspect at the stage of Sugimoto Reimi's discovery would be drastically different, and how he uses Shigechi's stand as surveillance. But all of this assumes L had help. What if he didn't? What if he faced Morio alone? Without the Joestars or the Speedwagon Foundation pulling him in, there's no reason L would step foot into Morio by chance. But
True.
there is one part that makes sense. While investigating the Kira case in Death Note, L's team compiled nationwide databases of missing persons that came from Japan. And yes, before you say anything, I know that the Kira case technically would have taken place way after the events in Part.
Oh, that's actually true. L would be plus like that's actually super true because like Part 4 takes place in like the 1990s, and then Death Note takes place in like 2009, 2008.
4, but just go with it for the sake of this video. So,
Okay.
in that sea of data, one town would stand out. For
Morio.
its size, the town of Morio has a wildly disproportionate number of disappearances, especially of women, and L notices immediately and decides to investigate. Skipping a little forward, L would then deduce that Morio has an active killer, someone so effective that it completely erases both victims and evidence. Unlike the Kira case in Death Note, where the victims died of heart attacks, L would have no evidence
Yeah,
of how
'cause
the
they
killings
just,
were executed.
just
Some
like
might
bomb.
say that his reasoning for killer being in town is a stretch, but considering his feats in Death Note, L would most likely arrive at this conclusion. Although in scenario 1, I did flesh it out a bit more from his meeting with Sugimoto Reimi, but we can go for this for now. Moving forward, even without evidence, L would start with the victims, mostly women, vanishing during routine parts of their day. That points to a predator who appears ordinary and safe. The killings spanned 15 years, meaning the culprit must have begun young, placing him now in his 30s to 40s even. The lack of mistakes across such a long period suggests a routine-driven personality who blends into ordinary life, likely as a quiet salaryman or something along those lines. In short, L's profile would land on a solitary, disciplined man in his 30s to 40s who lives a life Kira Yoshikage presents. For
Right.
L, Killer Queen would look like an invisible weapon of sorts. Objects
True,
explode
true.
without any bomb or device in sight. Victims disappear entirely, leaving nothing behind. That means there is never any physical evidence to collect, test, or present in court. At best, L can notice patterns, note where Kira is when people vanish, and how often these coincidences line up when he is near said victims. But without something concrete, he can't move to show proof. That doesn't mean L would give up though. Once L narrows Morio down to a short list of possible suspects, his strategy would almost certainly turn into long-term surveillance. With no crime scenes or forensic evidence to work from, the only realistic way forward is to watch these suspects of men continuously and wait for one of
With
them to
cameras?
act, similar to how he got an FBI agent to tell light. L would likely rotate teams and equipment over weeks or even months, following suspects through their daily routines and ordering them to record everything for L to see, as well as noting who was nearby when new disappearances occurred.
Oh, okay,
This would be a slow process of elimination until the circle tightened on Kira. And I doubt Kira would notice he's being tailed, since even Light in Death Note would not realize it if Luke didn't tell him. And stands don't function like that as well. If
Stand-
Kira is unaware,
Kira
then the
stand-
stand is as well. However, the key moment comes when Kira eventually kills again. If surveillance is in place at the right time, due to Kira's consistent habits of carrying trophies and killing ritually, if L managed to catch even one moment of Kira handling a hand before it was destroyed, or a victim is
Yeah,
always
handling
killed
a
when
hand.
Kira is nearby,
You guys get it? Handling a hand. Okay.
that would finally link one man to the disappearance. But this is a long-term game of patience. L has to wait for Kira to strike and hope his people are close enough to record it before Killer Queen destroys the evidence. But there's also another possible outcome that could happen. One of L's most famous traps is the 64 hidden cameras in Light's room. If L decided to go to the extreme and do the same for every suspect on that list, L's team would encounter Kira's dad and either get trapped or killed, which would boost L's suspicion of Kira even more. At that point, L would face another problem, the method of capture. Because in his mind, he's a killer with an unknown weapon that makes people explode or vanish. Even if L doesn't understand stands, he would classify this as a supernatural or advanced, unexplained ability which changes his approach completely. A standard police arrest wouldn't be safe. The chance of causalities would be
Yeah, because if if they just try to casually arrest him, he could easily, like, oh, he doesn't even have to do anything. He just has to summon Killer Queen, then just nuke them.
too high. That leaves two realistic options.
Okay.
First, L might push for a military or paramilitary unit to isolate and capture Kira alive, knowing the risk but relying on sheer numbers, coordination, and distant weapons. Second is if L deemed Kira too dangerous to risk a live arrest, the evidence of him carrying severed hands could justify a kill order. The strongest evidence he could ever obtain is catching Kira in proximity to a victim when she vanishes, or more definitively, recording him in possession of one of the severed hands he compulsively keeps.
That right there might be the only reason why L could actually, like, confirm Kira's the killer, because of his hand obsession.
Single image would be enough to justify a full-scale arrest attempt even if it doesn't explain how he kills. But this is where the case remains a little fragile. Kira has sheer heart attack, a remote stand that can kill from a distance without tying him directly to the scene. If Kira uses it against someone under surveillance, there would still be no evidence linking the death to him. It will look like a sudden, causeless explosion. L might suspect, but he wouldn't be able to prove it. That means the investigation hinges entirely on Kira's compulsion of trophies. As long as he continues to take hands, there's a chance L's camera or agents catch him before he erases the evidence. Without that slip, the case never leaves the stage of deduction and probability. So, could L actually bring Kira down alone?
Hold up, this is actually a good thumbnail. Hang on, thanks, bro. This is actually the thumbnail for his video, though. The thumbnail for the video I'm watching, it looks amazing.
Realistically, he could narrow the suspect list, build a compelling profile, and even identify Kira as the most likely killer. With enough patience, he might eventually get damning footage of Kira carrying a severed hand, but until that moment, the case is unsolvable by ordinary standards, because every other method of killing Kira employs leaves nothing behind. The hard truth is, without Stan using allies to counter Killer Queen directly, L's best hope is not outsmarting Kira in theory, but waiting for Kira's compulsions to betray him on camera. If that never happens, the world's greatest detective is left with nothing more than suspicion. In the end, this version of the case is only solvable because of the sheer scale of resources L holds. Without constant surveillance team, databases, and funding, Morio's disappearance will remain an unsolvable mystery. Even then, the very nature of stands make the case nearly impossible to prove in a court of law. So, those are the two scenarios, one where L has the Morio team at his side and one where he works alone. Both show how difficult the Yoshikage Kira case really is, even for the world's greatest detective. Let me know what you think about these outcomes.
That was actually a W video. Go subscribe to this guy if you want. But I actually have two questions. First of all, what about Bites the Dust? If any, Bites the Dust makes it even harder because it rewinds time an hour later, which only the person that has Bites the Dust will actually be able to know what happened. But L would be another one of the people that don't remember anything because time got looped back an hour. Then there's that one ability he has where he can take over someone's body. So for some reason the video got cut off, but as I was saying, if we're in the anime, Kira can switch consciousness with someone. He switches with Kawasu. If L catches Kira, but then he switches to Kawasu, does that mean that the case has to get resolved again? Or is it like even after, or are we doing it like final part, like final arc Kira, where it's like he's Kawasu, he has Bites to Dust, like everything in his arsenal? Cause like that kind of switches things up. Anyway, thank you guys so much for watching. If you did enjoy, please like and subscribe. Next up, 2026, 1,000 subscribers. Let's find out. Thank you guys so much for watching. I love you all consensually. And I'll see you guys in the next video. Peace.